Hi, welcome to Microsoft Build. It's so delightful to be with you today, and Build started yesterday night. Wow. I stayed up and watched some of the keynotes, and then here we are today. Welcome to all the Microsoft team who is on this panel. More importantly, welcome to all our awesome developers of Asia Pacific. Today, this is a community connect with the cloud solution architects and experts from Microsoft to kind of go through what's big news at Build and also dive a little bit more into what they as developers feel about these technologies and how they think what are some of the key items that are going to help you do better. So the mission at Microsoft is to empower every developer to achieve more. And any developer, any app on any device and any platform. We've been talking about this for a few years now, but I think this is a moment where it's a big payoff because now you will see what's coming down. Build is really the tools and platforms that are going to integrate a lot of data, AI, and of course, a unified experience for you across end to end. That's going to help you build more, faster, better, and more collaboratively. So today, the Build keynote was quite exciting. Satya spoke about 10 technologies that are going to make your life better. I'll just touch upon a few of them, and then we'll have the panel who's going to come in and talk about a little bit on the app ubiquity, cloud native applications, DevOps, and more. So the kickoff itself was with Developer Flow. Developer Flow is about not just about building applications faster, but really about being able to stay in the moment and be in the flow where you can actually do things better because you have a connected seamless flow between your tools and the databases and the AI models and all of it. So literally, GitHub was our big acquisition a couple of years back to bring that flow to you. Today, we announced DevBox. So GitHub is great. The code spaces is great when you're an app developer building for the web. But when you are building for the PC or mobile, etc., you need something to bring up that dev environment very quickly in matter of seconds, if not a minute. So DevBox is that one superb thing. You got to check it out. There are build sessions happening on DevBox, but it's literally allowing PC developers, mobile developers, and even gaming developers to bring up that dev environment very, very quickly. Now, couple of things that were really exciting for me, and I'm going to touch upon data. So the unified data piece, and we announced Microsoft, the intelligent data platform. What that is doing is actually addressing some of the core issues that you've been talking to us about. That data lies in siloed environments, and then it is super difficult to actually reason insights out of that data, build models, and use AI effectively. And we know that in the last few years, the need for data-driven insights and intelligent data and intelligent systems have become super, super critical. So what the intelligent data platform does for you is it kind of seamlessly takes the data from wherever it is in siloed places into Synapse and helps you use Synapse analytics seamlessly and come out with the insights. A great application of this is from Beekeeper AI. Do check it out. They have built, for example, an intelligent clinical system, which is built on these tools. And what that does is actually leverage data residing in different environments in different research organizations, but be able to build a model and try it out on these data without actually having to de-identify the data or infringe on any privacy requirement. This is a huge, huge thing in regulated industries, healthcare in particular. But the ability now to actually access and model AI on data sitting remotely in different systems and different databases without infringing on any confidentiality is a super cool thing. And I think Microsoft is the only cloud vendor to have that confidential data systems available now, working closely with NVIDIA, AMD, and the others. So do check it out. There's a lot lying there and very exciting. On the same note, on Microsoft Responsible AI, we have been working on this nascent field and trying to advance the industry on this. So on Responsible AI, we had the framework earlier, but you should go check out some of the stuff we have to help you make sure that your solutions are actually responsible. So it's about a lot of tools that you're going to use to kind of assess, test, and then be able to correct the responsible AI requirements very quickly. Models as platforms, another very exciting thing. So this is what I was talking about earlier, that Satya in fact mentioned that how do we make developers more productive is when we can give you those things as platforms. And modeling has been a very siloed activity, if you will, within an organization. It was not cutting across organization. Reusing of models was not that easy. And now we're bringing up models as platforms, which you're going to, which is just going to power your ability to leverage those models and not sit down and build those models from scratch. A whole new area. Be sure to check that out. And this is just touching on a few of this, and I'm really excited to see what our panel is going to talk about next. So, hey, Gaurang, super thrilled to have you here. And tell us a little bit more about what's exciting you around the cloud native space. I'd love to hear from you. I'm sure the developers are waiting to hear that.
It is an exciting, isn't it? You know, I've not been able to track all the announcements through Build. I'm surprised you managed to combine so many announcements in that 5-minute pitch. But if you're a developer, you know, this is the best time for you to be abreast of what's happening in the industry, happening in the technology space, and utilizing these tools and resources to build better applications. So at Microsoft, we are actualizing our ambition to deliver tools and services to support any developer, any application on any device for any platform. And this really goes across industries, whether you are a manufacturing company, whether you're a traditional bank, a cutting edge fintech, or even not a developer, right? You're going to see some real tools and platforms that make your lives easier. And these tools can be used today and are often deeply embedded with AI from the cloud to the edge and automations. If you look at the application development space, whether it's modernizing existing applications or building new innovative solutions, we have the broadest spectrum of services and solutions that allow developers to operate with a high level of control or a high level of productivity. So, you know, we have solutions like the Azure Spring Cloud, which is being renamed to Azure Spring Apps Come Build, and which is a fully managed service from Microsoft and VMware. And that solves the challenges of running Spring apps at cloud scale by removing the need to worry about infrastructure, app lifecycle, monitoring, container intricacies, and Kubernetes. Something else that we announced was around the App Service Landing Zone Accelerator. This has been released to help customers deploy a reference enterprise scale deployment of Azure App Service on the App Service Environment version 3. And the combination of documentation and deployable artifacts makes it easier to move enterprise apps from an on-premises environment to Azure App Service. And then we have Azure Container Apps now generally available. This is probably one of the most exciting developments we are seeing in Build. So this enables customers to run microservices and containerize apps on a serverless platform. Azure Container Apps is an app-centric service empowering developers to focus on differentiating business logic of their applications rather than on cloud infrastructure management. So it really empowers you to focus on what problems you're trying to solve for the business rather than having to worry about which server should I use or what database do I need to use? So, and if you look at the other end of the spectrum, we talk about low code, no code. In a digital first company, the developer workflow influences how the entire company works. And we're talking about fusion teams here of pro developers and domain experts integrating across all functions and disciplines, enabling closer collaborations. And we continue to innovate in this space. So today we announce Express Design in Power Apps, which means now you can upload a PDF or a PowerPoint or even a hand-drawn sketch, and Express Design will convert it into an app within seconds. That's the power of AI at your fingertips. So the possibilities are endless, and we expect developers and organizations to benefit from all these exciting new features and services being made available to them going forward. So we look forward to hearing more from you. I check out all the other sessions. I touched upon low code, I touched upon app service, container apps, and my colleagues will touch upon few more solutions. Do check out all these sessions as you go through the sessions from build, and we expect to hear from you more as and when you start using these features and connecting with your Microsoft Teams.
Wow, apps in minutes. Gaurang, I can't wait to get my hands on it. So thank you, Gaurang. That was a good overview of what's the broad spectrum of services that we are having here, right here for app innovation. Lots to check out there. Developers in the audience, I hope you will get to build and see more of those deep dive sessions with our experts. Now, thrilled to have you here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, this is Inu Mittal. I am Customer Success Leader for APAC, and I head the Digital App and Innovation Solution area. I'm a developer advocate, and I admire and uncover the power of innovations to help developers focus on application logic, code, and functionalities without worrying about underlying server and operational details.
Wow, thanks for joining us, Inu. And I know you talk about this all the time, focusing on building apps and not the underlying infra. That's exciting for developers in general. So tell us what technology you're most excited about in that, and tell us more about it.
That's an interesting question, Annie. My colleague Gaurang provided a holistic view of what's new and exciting in app innovation. So in my opinion, you would start looking at the class of services we have on Azure that fit into the serverless category. Annie, can we display serverless slide?
Yes.
So serverless is what we define as a set of services when you don't need to think upfront about how to set up a VM or install an application host like a Node or .NET framework or a Java runtime. It's something you want to either configure or deploy your code to and just run without having to worry upfront about the underlying infrastructure or updating the software. You also wouldn't want to incur huge costs during this initial phase, but at the same time, have the flexibility to scale out and up should your MVP evolve to a production-grade deployment. Exciting, right? You pay for what you use rather than pay for what you provision.
Right, that's super interesting. So what can you really build with serverless if you're not needing to think too much about infrastructure? Is a trade-off having to write a lot of code?
I'm glad you asked. Actually, not at all. Serverless just means not to having think too much about infrastructure upfront. You will need to eventually, but if you just want to get started and focus on business application value and requirements you're trying to create, then you can skip that at the beginning. So broadly speaking, you can look at serverless in terms of code, low code, and no code. So let's say you want to build a web application for a business idea you have. You want to create a single page application powered by something like React, Angular, or Vue, and some backend services to store state. So let's say you want to create something based on Gatsby, a popular open source content management system. For something like this, you can make use of Azure Static Web Apps. Azure Static Web Apps combines a number of Azure services to provide a way for you to deploy and host your static application and serve to your end users on a global scale. It gives you the ability to configure custom domains, routing, as well as authentication and authorization, all without needing to set up the underlying infrastructure. Exciting, right? So when you need to store information into some kind of state store, you can integrate Azure functions through RESTful APIs that your front end can call.
Okay, cool. You mentioned Azure function, so that falls into the serverless category as well.
Absolutely. The Azure functions allow developers to have greater control over functionality they want to implement. Continuing the example of static web application, you can use Azure functions to accept a web request, most commonly using an open API specification, which can then store data to a database. Azure Functions is more than just a way to host some code though. It encourages the use of a programmatic interface that allows you to easily interact with other Azure services. Say, for example, storing data to a NoSQL database like Cosmos DB or a relational database like Azure SQL. These databases in themselves have a serverless aspect to them that allows for scaling up and down based on demand. You literally only pay for the service that is in use, which is great for prototyping and MVP through to production.
Right. So what other use cases, would you see for serverless?
So we talked about use of single page application, which be as simple as someone's blog with the ability to grow to an enterprise scale e-commerce application. If you think about different use cases, moving on to the next slide, you can use functions for multiple use cases and scenarios like web apps, mobile application backends, IoT connected backends, bot processing, real-time file and stream processing, automated schedulers, and even for extending SaaS applications. When working with customers, I often see services like Azure Functions and Logic Apps filling in the gaps left for large enterprise applications. For example, we had a customer who had a need to ingest some data from Azure Monitor into their enterprise security application. And they didn't want to ingest everything, as that would have had a huge impact on their storage cost. There was no out-of-the-box integration, and solution had to be cost-effective. And most importantly, provide a low operational overhead. So at that time, using Logic Apps, we were able to quickly create a repeatable workflow that could be deployed to run on a regular basis, retrieve data from Azure Monitor, perform some light transformations, and then send it to a storage location. And since the services we were integrating were native to Azure, we were able to make use of managed identities, a best practice way to implement authentication and authorization on Azure. The Logic App workflow itself is created using a visual editor that can also be stored as a code in a code repository like, say, GitHub or even Azure DevOps. Logic Apps are a great way to implement apps, data, services, and systems. Here, with just a few clicks, you can also integrate the workflow with Microsoft's cognitive services or Office 365 products. You can do this without writing any code, but still maintain developer best practices of version control and deployments. Exciting, right?
Yep, super, super. There's a question coming in for you, Is there a path or best practices from serverless to a complex cloud app? I agree serverless is a good starting point, but over time, more complex controls, governance, integration is required that the serverless platform may not support.
So like I said, that for serverless, you don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure to start with. Start slow. Create your application, which is ready to go to production. And from there, you can check the suite of applications and the products we have available on Azure. And we are always there to help you. Connect with us. We will guide you on the best practices and tools. Check out our Microsoft website and check out the learning paths. You will have it all there.
Thanks, Inu. And any final words for our developers out there?
I'm glad you asked. We are very excited to be making a positive difference and impact on our developers. Our solutions have helped customers solve business problems over the years, increase developers' productivity by at least 25%, and increase ROI by more than 150%. Well, one of the key challenges we hear from our customers is around selecting the right tool for hosting their application. And that links back to the question from the audience. So today, developers have options to span from more control to more productivity. If the developer wants to maximize productivity, they might start with low-code or serverless tools. And if the developer wants deep control, they might want to opt for Kubernetes or even virtual machines. The challenge isn't in selecting the right tool on the spectrum. Developers can figure that part out, but the challenge is ensuring that this selection can interoperate with the rest of application estate. For example, if a developer starts with a low-code tool, how easily can they extend its functionality with APIs hosted in a serverless backend? If the developer starts with a serverless function, how easily can that integrate with a part of their application that's running natively on Kubernetes?
Great points,
Thanks, Annie. And then just last point to cover, more broadly, how can they collaborate as a team? How can they manage and govern it all together with common DevOps and lifecycle management? If developer velocity is the goal, developers should be able to select the right tool for the job based on the level of control and productivity they need. They shouldn't worry about interoperability, extensibility, and unified management. It should all work just together, seamlessly.
Awesome. Thanks, Inu. I'm going to quickly go over to Antonia. So Antonia, here's a question for you. I'm a developer. Why do I need to care about security?
Thanks, Annie. Thanks for that question. So I know a lot of the people viewing here are developers at heart, right? And even in our keynote speech, Satya is talking about, how we write more secure code. How do we help our developers, embrace that accelerated developer velocity, but at the same time make it secure? So first and foremost, let's say why do I need to care, right? I mean, the threat landscape is evolving. We have so many different, threats and vulnerabilities happening very early on in the development phase and the development cycle. So things like unchecked dependencies that makes up easily a bulk of your code, right? That could introduce any vulnerabilities that later on attackers can, utilize to hack into your systems when it goes into production. Other things like next point. Right? Simple, we are all human, we make errors, right? We may check in tokens, we may check in passwords, and that goes into your repositories, and then you have exposure. And other things, right? There are just generally more developers than security professionals. And that goes without saying, right? If something is caught earlier on, it's much easier to fix because it's still in the development cycle. But if it's allowed to sit in your application and reaches production, and the breach happens when it goes live, that's going to cost your organization reputation and lots of money to remediate. So now that we've answered the question about why you as a developer, you should care and you should consider shifting left in terms of security, let's talk about how do we actually go about doing it, right? So you can't escape from the term DevSecOps. I know many developers, we are already using DevOps practices, our day-to-day life cycle. We have DevOps toolings, we may use GitHub, we have source code repositories, CI/CD pipelines. But what is DevSecOps, right? So do we first think of it as something that's rather complicated, right? You have a lot of architecture, a lot of interlinking to the different tools, or maybe you think of something like this, right? A few processes. Annie, can you go to the next slide? Right, different processes at the different stages. There are many things to do. You have to tick off a checkbox, etc. Okay, so this brings the developer to the question, right? Where do I start, right? Next slide. Okay, it's confusing, right? Everybody goes like, what am I going to do? So here's my advice. And this was also reiterated in a few of the breakout sessions, right? GitHub Advanced Security allows developers to embrace the shift left culture by just enabling features that are already native to GitHub. So first one, enable dependable. So dependable is what we would call a software composition analysis tool, right? It allows you to track all the libraries that you're using in your code base, and it notifies you when there are vulnerabilities detected. Another cool feature is that, it has an alert that will actually raise pull requests on your behalf to remediate any known vulnerable libraries. Step 2, right? Enable code scanning. Now, if you were to do this using a third-party tool or in other DevOps tooling, you may have to install extensions, you may have to connect to another environment to do the scanning. Whereas in GitHub, we have it right inbuilt into the native GitHub environment, right? It helps you do the scanning, find vulnerabilities even before it's being merged into the main source code base. Now, third step, enable secret scanning. Like what we mentioned earlier on, right? We are all human. We may make mistakes. We may check in passwords and so on. So that really helps you, to catch any potential leaked passwords and helps you to alert you to revoke any exposed secrets. Now, in build, in particular, it was also announced an additional feature called push protection, right? So that actually stops developers from even pushing secrets into the repository. Prior to this, we will only scan your existing repositories, and by then you would have to do a lot of steps to remediate that. But now with push protection, even before the developer checks in any secrets, he will get stopped and notified if that's something that he wants to do. So I'm really excited, and I really encourage developers to look at how they can be a part of shifting left with security and how Microsoft helps you, with that developer flow. It doesn't slow you down, it's embedded, it's frictionless. So really encourage you to try out GitHub Advanced Security in GitHub. Thanks, and
Thanks, Antonio. That is so super critical topic, and you made it simple with 3 steps and start with GitHub. Thank you. Over now to Francesco. What's your favorite architecture? Tell us a little bit about yourself before you start, Francisco, and talk to us about your favorite architecture and make it real for the developers.
Okay, thank you. I'm a digital architect and I love to build products and solve a problem with technology. So can we go next slide? Thank you. And this is my favorite architecture. It's serverless and built on top of APIM, Function, and Cosmo. Why? So I work for more than 15 years on B2C product and I love building application. When I develop code, I'm focused on solving a customer need. And before Cloud Native, after development was done, I was spending a big amount of time on provisioning the infrastructure and configure it properly. I had to study many infrastructure concepts that I didn't like, and every time I was scared of not providing enough security or scalability to my solution. So serverless is amazing because it gives me the chance to focus on what I love most, building products, while provisioning infra, deploy code. It's just a matter of executing a pipeline. And what makes serverless even more attractive to me is, as mentioned by Enu, the concept of pay-per-use and scale when need. So you get also a lot of high level of security out of the box. And then also to make Antonio happy, full DevOps support with Azure Pipeline or GitHub Action.
Yes, Antonio should be happy with that. So talk about scale a bit. Can it go to 20,000 transactions per second?
Yeah, so let's imagine a normal customer scenario. you might need to go fast and you might know the best practice, but you ignore it because you are focusing to test the products. So in Azure Portal, you might pick your product you need, but then you will go next, and deploy all your function, APIM and Cosmos without taking care about all the configuration. So you might forgot monitoring, use static content, blob storage, configuring auto scaling. And then what will happen is that when it goes live, most of the time a small solution day by day become a big solution. And suddenly, if a marketing campaign is launched, you start to face problems like performance issue, exception, timeout, service that hits maximum capacity, and you don't know what to do. So I usually recommend to proceed with this journey that we can see. That is, and each troubleshooting journey, there is no magic formula behind it. Scale and native architecture is a mix of best practice and trial and error. So the first point, I will start to improve observability, and you can see how I put the icon of Azure Monitor and Application Insights that help you a lot to understand what's going on in a distributed environment like cloud. Then create a production replica and use a performance testing tool to reproduce user behavior like stress test or long time execution. And on this, Azure load testing might help you a lot. Then put in place the right methodology, like defining testing objective, merge data from different sources, and also be precise. Can we go back one slide? And yeah, thank you. Then if you are stuck, ask for help. And this also Microsoft support can help you a lot on this area, especially to point you to understand where is the right problem to solve. And then there are 3 additional steps that are very critical. One is to always check documentation and understand for each product if you're using the right SKU. Then check your requirement and see if you have put in place the right networking architecture. And this has a lot of security implication. And finally, based on my experience, most of the time, the resolution of a performance issue is not related on the amount of computational power you're using, but more on the quality of your code. So it's very important to leverage on coding design pattern like singleton for a database client or introducing asynchronous messaging to mitigate a slow backend system. And if we can go to the next slide, and this might be related, it can answer the question also that we got before. So after a performance improvement exercise, the architecture will look more complex than the initial one. And the key area to improve are especially on the networking, to add private endpoints to mitigate any snap port exhaustion. And this implies to have a VNet integration. Then you might need to upgrade the SKU of different product to match throughput needs. In third point is to check all the metrics of your live environment and also during stress test, and understand exactly how your architecture scale, what are the bottleneck, and define on top of that auto scaling policy to manage your traffic peaks. And then finally, take into consideration that the DevSecOps service will not be able to access your service if they are private. And so you will need a self-hosted agent to run CI/CD. So finally, if a developer will face a similar issue, I recommend her or him to focus on 4 key areas. One is to make the architecture fully observable. Then be very precise and methodical in making assumption, perform tests, and check result. Then if you're stuck, ask for help. You can always contact us. And then finally, remember to check your code and challenge yourself to optimize your code instead of simply increasing computational power.
Thanks, Antonia. I love the point, when stuck, ask for help.
It's very important.
Super important. And so where do you find help? We are all around you. That's the point. Join the community. So there is an APAC Discord channel. The QR codes are here. Feel free to, get in, register, and join the Discord channel. Many of our cloud solution architects and experts, MVPs, who are our most valued professional outside of Microsoft, all of them are there, and lots of developers there as well. So join the Discord channel and be part of the community. Sign up to the Developer Source newsletter so you have a regular monthly connect with what's happening, what's coming from Microsoft. And we also have Code Without Barriers for the female developers out there. Code Without Barriers is a program where we help you skill, you mentor, coach, you hack with us, and then you're connected to our ecosystem, the customers and partners who have jobs and internships for you. So make sure you join the community. And of course, right now we have a virtual hackathon running. It's in the final stages now. Imagine Cup is huge for student developers out there. Watch out for the next Imagine Cup that's starting. This one, the 2022 finale, is going to happen very soon, and we have got some awesome teams from Sri Lanka, Singapore, and Philippines out there in the finals. So watch out for that as well. So really thankful to our speakers today. Thank you, Gaurang, Inu, Antonia, and Francisco, for coming in and sharing your love for technology with the developers out there. And a huge thank you to all the developers who joined this session. Keep connected and watch more of Build. Thank you.